Hello and welcome to the Daily Fade. My name is Hetz, and this is where we get faded and talk about the news and politics of the day. I hope you will join me and smoke a blunt or have a sip of wine or milk, whatever pleases you in the evening. Wow, look at that. All right, so welcome to the Daily Faded. Today is September 1st, 2020. Trump draws battle lines. Before we get into it, the quick update on coronavirus. The world is now closing in on 26 million cases confirmed worldwide, with over 861,000 deaths. In the United States, we have 6.2 million confirmed cases of COVID-19, 188,900 deaths as of today, and that is according to NCOV Live coronavirus tracker. And in California, we have the most cases of any state in the union, 716,649 cases and 13,165 deaths in California. It's now very clear, I think, that Trump is eyeing a coronavirus vaccine as his October surprise. The administration has already proved not only that it ignores science, but that it is going to double down on ignoring science. They changed recommendations to remove 14-day self-quarantine for travelers. They talked about getting rid of barriers for plasma treatments. They changed testing protocols to stop testing asymptomatic people who have been exposed from getting tested. They've been cutting all the scientific corners for quite some time now, and it just seems to get worse every day. And after bullying the FDA, it seems that Dr. Hahn, I think is his name, is succumbing to the political pressure from Trump. So expect that Trump is going to force the FDA to approve a vaccine before it has clinical trials. This would put millions of people at risk, both because the vaccine might not be safe and because the vaccine might not work and people might think that they're immune, go out into the world, not protect themselves, and catch COVID-19. There's a lot that can go wrong by not testing the phase 3 clinical trials of the vaccine. And on top of everything, Trump's newest advisor on coronavirus is Dr. Scott Atlas, who has no experience in infectious diseases or in epidemiology. And he is a proponent of the so-called herd immunity theory of handling the coronavirus, which is to let lots of people get coronavirus. And if we went to herd immunity in the United States, we would be looking at something in the neighborhood of 2 million dead. So obviously that is a psychotic anti-science approach. And these people are putting us all on the chopping block for the sake of Donald Trump's reelection. Moving on from coronavirus, Alex Morse lost tonight in Massachusetts' 1st congressional district. I'm very sad to report that Alex Morse lost. It was a tough race. It was an emotional race. I think Alex Morse also lost a sibling in the last year. But obviously, when the smears came out, Alex Morse actually considered dropping out of the race. He was so despondent over it until it came to light that it was all a scam. Poor Alex thought that he had legitimately hurt some people's feelings because of the accusations that were being made, but as The Intercept revealed, it was all a scam. So Richard Neal is a dirty, dirty politician and a dirty bastard. And I hope Alex Morse comes back and wins again. And runs again in 2 years and beats him, because Richard Neal is definitely one of the bad guys that we need to get rid of. However, Ed Markey won tonight in the U.S. Senate race in Massachusetts. Ed Markey versus Joe Kennedy III. Kind of the big marquee race, pardon the pun, in Massachusetts today. I think Crystal Ball made that same pun this morning, so I apologize for stealing bad jokes from Crystal Ball. So Markey won. Last time I checked, he was up 55% to 45%, and the race had been called by a lot of media. It's a big rebuke to leadership that Ed Markey won, and it is a big win for the progressive movement. It signals, Joe Kennedy's loss signals that Pelosi cannot save her members from insurgents. And oddly, in this case, the insurgent was the incumbent, because Kennedy is a name that has never been beaten before in Massachusetts politics. A Kennedy has never lost a race in Massachusetts politics until tonight. Now, the thing that's interesting about Markey is that he doesn't have a perfect progressive voting record. He voted for the Iraq War. He voted for the 94 crime bill, as did Bernie Sanders. He voted for the Patriot Act, not a good vote. But he's become much more progressive in the last few years, and of course introduced the Green New Deal in partnership with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And Markey smelled what was on the breeze and moved towards the progressive left. I don't really care what his motivation for going to the left was, whether it's what he truly believes or whether he just thinks that's where the politically wise are going today. But I don't care. Having introduced the Green New Deal, that's some bona fides right there. And but here's the deal, right? Nancy Pelosi came out and endorsed Joe Kennedy III, knocking the shit out of this idea that they can't endorse challengers to incumbents' seats. Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leadership cannot protect their members. They can't protect their members. So what Ed Markey did in moving towards the progressive left, more and more people in the House and the Senate are going to start doing that, more and more Democrats, because they're going to be worried about getting knocked off by a primary challenger. And that's good. That's how the Tea Party became powerful, not by electing all Tea Party members, but by putting fear of the Tea Party in enough sitting reps that they started moving towards and voting with the Tea Party. Politico is reporting tonight that Democratic consultants are starting to tell their clients, e.g. Democratic congresspeople, not to run afoul of AOC and to move in a more progressive direction to stave off primary challengers. Nathan J. Robinson, editor of Current Affairs, tweeted, AOC is officially a power broker. Pelosi, the leader of the House, could not swing the race for her guy, but the DSA member in her first term turned the race. Maybe should have given her that DNC speaking slot. Be nice to AOC unless you want to lose. So there's just a great deal of pleasure in seeing the establishment frustrated. Joe Kennedy III, Nancy Pelosi loved him because he raised $5 million in the 2018 cycle. That was her big reason for endorsing Kennedy over Markey. Markey, who she worked with in the House for decades. Anyway, moving along, moving right through. I've got a lot of things to talk about tonight. Right now I'm going to smoke a little bit. So I got a very interesting comment on last night's live stream from a member of the Daily Faded community, Eric V. I'm just going to read it to you because I think it was fascinating. He was reacting to my commentary on Kyle Rittenhouse. This is what he wrote. Rittenhouse is in huge trouble. It's all about victim one. That's where everything started. Without victim one, none of this would have happened. First, pursuant to Wisconsin statute self-defense and defense of others, 939.4a, the defendant can't claim 939.482a. The defendant can't claim privilege of self-defense because by breaking curfew and illegally possessing a dangerous weapon, he was breaking the law and therefore forfeited his claim to the privilege of self-defense. But he'll try it anyway, and in Wisconsin, the burden of proof on self-defense is on the defendant. He must demonstrate that he exhausted all reasonable means to avoid having to shoot victim one, or he can't claim the privilege of self-defense. He's going to say he feared losing his weapon to victim one and then getting executed with his own rifle. So to defend himself, he had to shoot victim one first. This is not an affirmative defense. The prosecutor can ask him, if you were in fear of being executed with your own rifle, why didn't you disable the rifle? Why didn't you throw the rifle away from you? Why didn't you throw the rifle on the roof? Why didn't you throw the rifle under a car? Why didn't you keep running? Why didn't you scream for help? In the video with victim one chasing you, you had plenty of time to drop your magazine and cycle the action. That would have made it impossible to get executed with your own rifle. So why didn't you drop the magazine and eject the live round, etc., etc.? These are just a few reasonable means to escape or otherwise avoid death or great bodily harm from your own rifle. When he was being pursued by victim one and was in fear of imminent death or great bodily harm from his own rifle, he had many chances to remove or reduce the lethality of the dangerous weapon that he illegally introduced into the situation. He didn't attempt any reasonable means to avoid having to shoot victim one, and this takes away his claim to privilege of self-defense. So without self-defense, he has no defense to intentional homicide, mandatory life. The law is crystal clear on this, so this might not go to trial. And it's Wisconsin Statute 939.48, self-defense and the defense of others, Section 2, Paragraph A. I mean, I thought that was an incredibly insightful assessment of what Kyle Rittenhouse is facing, and I really appreciated his in-depth explanation of reasonable means and how that's going to affect the self-defense case that they will inevitably try to make. And it's really in line with, I think, what I was thinking, which is that, you forfeit self-defense when you've already shot someone. Certainly in regards to self-defense on the second killing and the third person who is shot, you've just shot someone and they're trying to disarm you. Therefore, you do not get to claim self-defense when they come at you with a skateboard. Moving along, I wanted to mention evictions because we've got some news on evictions today. Bree Newsom Bass, the great Bree Newsom Bass, Black Lives Matter activist who shimmied up the flagpole, was it in 2016? Whenever it was, shimmied up the flagpole of the South Carolina Capitol and took down the Confederate flag on her own and shimmied down and got arrested. Bree Newsom Bass is a great follow on Twitter. She tweeted, "I don't know what folks think is about to happen if we allow millions of people to be evicted or foreclosed on and create a worse housing crisis than 2008 on top of a pandemic. But folks are in massive denial if they think it won't sink the whole economy." I think that is obviously true. And I think the truth of that is why we actually got some relief on rent and foreclosures, on evictions and foreclosures today. Hold on one sec. So, Peter Gowan, who is a DSA guy, I believe, tweeted the moratorium details. So it's going to last until December 31st, applies to all properties, applies to tenants who expect to earn under 99,000 or under 198,000 if filing jointly in 2020, tenants who got stimulus checks, and tenants who didn't have to file in 2019. The process will require self-declaration. You're not able to make a full rent payment because of loss of income or unexpected expenses due to COVID-19. You are making best efforts to make partial payments, taking into account other non-discretionary expenses. You may become homeless if evicted, or you would have to move into a congregated setting like a shelter or a shared living arrangement with family or roommates. If you meet the criteria and make the declaration, you cannot be evicted until January 2021. It does not convert any rental debt you accrue during this period into consumer debt, so you can still be evicted based on it in 2021 unless you can pay it back. So it kicks the can down the road again and will need to be addressed, but it's something desperately needed right now. So that's on federally backed homes, mortgages, and leases, I guess. In California last night, Gavin Newsom signed a better deal than that. I think it also extends the eviction moratorium to January, but the law that Gavin Newsom signed into effect in California does convert the back rent to consumer debt. So you cannot be evicted in California. You cannot be evicted in California because of the amount that you owe your landlord, at least through 2021. So after a little bit of a round trip there, we arrive at Trump. Trump has become unhinged in the last couple of days. I mean, more unhinged. Every time I think he can't become any more unhinged, he proves me wrong. He did a round table in Kenosha, Wisconsin today, surrounded by cops, business owners, Bill Barr, Republican politicians. And he clearly was drawing battle lines by omitting protesters, by omitting Black Lives Matter, by omitting family members, by omitting victims, and by only talking to cops and only talking to business owners who had their business suffer looting or burning or vandalism in some cases. He's advertising civil war. That's what he's doing. He's advertising civil war. He's saying, hey, look over here. I left out all the darkies. I'm speaking in Donald Trump's voice when I say that. I probably shouldn't say it that way. But I'm sure that Donald Trump uses that word, because I'm sure Donald Trump uses the N word as well. Yeah, I mean, he called protesters anti-police and anti-American. He said rioting and looting are forms of domestic terror. As we discussed last night, the big domestic terrorist is Kyle fucking Rittenhouse, who Donald Trump defended. Rioting and looting are not domestic terror. They are random acts of violence. There is no ideological, societal, or political goal behind looting and rioting. There isn't. They want to keep conflating it with Black Lives Matter, but any Black Lives Matter leader will tell you that it's a nonviolent movement, and they don't recognize looting or rioting or arson as legitimate forms of protest. And then Trump proceeded to suck off the police who were all around him ad nauseum. Let's see, among Trump's other beauties, he said cops don't murder people, they choke. He repeated his thing about choking, equating the cop who shot Jacob Black 7 times in the back with a golfer who misses a 3-foot putt. And then he created this false dichotomy. If they make a wrong decision, speaking about the cops, they're either dead or in trouble. This is at least the second time he has said this, and operates on the assumption that innocent black men will always murder cops, right? So if the cop shoots him, then the cop is safe, but now he's in trouble. But if the cop doesn't shoot him, then he will be shot dead. So even though Jacob Blake had his back to the cop, he would have killed him. He would have killed him. That's what Trump is saying. It's a false dichotomy, obviously. Obviously. Trump says African Americans and Latinos in Kenosha want to have safety, so they welcomed in Trump and federal troops. Trump is talking about how blacks and Latinx communities in Kenosha, they want public safety. Fucking imbecile. Fucking imbecile. What do you think Black Lives Matter is? It is people saying it's not safe. It's not safe, and they would like it to be safe. That's what Black Lives Matter is. I mean, that's the thing. Trump is so stupid. He's so stupid that he doesn't even recognize the obvious gaping holes in cases that he makes. They gave, I guess, $44 million to the state of Wisconsin, $1 million to the Kenosha PD, and $4 million to what I think was 25 small business owners they were talking about. Trump said, quote, "We are doing a big number on Antifa. They're bad." I don't think Trump actually knows anything about Antifa. Does he not understand that Captain America and Indiana Jones are Antifa? I don't believe in inciting violence. However, I have nothing bad to say about people who defend themselves or defend others from fascism. Now, I don't think you should go to protests with weapons, but helmets and shields are respectable given how much of a beatdown protesters regularly take. Trump also denied today on Twitter that he had mini strokes. I don't remember who, but someone tweeted something about Trump not telling us about his strokes. And it became Twitter fodder. Strokahontas started trending on Twitter. Everyone calling Donald Trump Strokahontas. And clipping videos of him sounding like a madman as evidence of his mini strokes. But here's the best. Christopher Ingram from Washington Post tweeted today of Trump. And then they have cans of soup, and then they throw the cans of soup. That's better than a brick because you can't throw a brick. It's too heavy. But a can of soup, you can really put some power into that, right? And then when they get caught, they say, "No, this soup is for my family. They're so innocent. This soup is for my family. It's incredible." And you have people coming over with bags of soup, big bags of soup. And they lay it on the ground, and the anarchists take it and they start throwing it at our cops, at our police. And if it hits you, that's worse than a brick because that's got force. It's the perfect size. It's like made perfect. And when they get caught, they say, "No, this is just soup for my family." And then the media says, "This is just soup. These people are very, very innocent. They're innocent people. These are just protesters." Isn't it wonderful to allow protesting? No, and by the way, the media knows it better than we do. They know what's going on. I don't know what's wrong with them. They're doing our country a tremendous disservice. I'll say that. Oh man, Trump rants are just amazing. This man is a complete and utter lunatic and an idiot. I saw something else that I wanted to share tonight, which is not a typical source for this live stream. There was an article in The Onion today that I really felt needed to be aired out. The headline was, "Trump vigorously defends Kenosha shooter as racist white supremacist." Listen to how far they have to go in order to mock Donald Trump. Washington, taking a firm stand ahead of his visit to the Wisconsin, President Donald Trump vigorously defended Kenosha shooter Kyle Rittenhouse Tuesday as a racist white supremacist. Quote, people are taking his actions completely out of context, but you've got to realize this kid was a brave racist who crossed state lines to kill and injure Black Lives Matter activists, said Trump, echoing the opinion being expressed by many popular voices across conservative media and suggesting that the shooter merely wanted to protect white America. Quote, this is a good, proud white supremacist, as pure-blooded as they come. He had no choice. The mob was challenging his worldview and left him no option to kill those standing in opposition to his racist ideology. Many are trying to smear him by saying he only acted in self-defense, but the evidence reveals this was a kid who just loved the police state. At press time, Trump added he only wished Rittenhouse would have managed to shoot more protesters. What blew my mind about this little Onion article when I stumbled across it today was that look how far they had to go in order to mock Trump. Look at how extreme they had to, the words they had to put in Trump's mouth. Look at how extreme they had to make it to make the case. And let's face it, you think this was too hyperbolic. We have 2 months to go. Don't be so sure that this Onion article is not possible. President Donald Trump is building the framework within which a portion of the country, a minority of the country, completely accepts acts of state violence. That's a very dangerous framework, a very dangerous context for Donald Trump to be building up. Donald Trump's second term will be like Duterte in the Philippines. There, it's a war against drug dealers. Here, it will be open season on Black Lives Matter and any protester anywhere. I mean, we've seen Republican state houses passing laws making it legal to drive your car into protesters. That's the America that Donald Trump wants. An America ruled by a minority that rules through force. Our country is becoming a fascist theocracy. That's what they want it to be. With all that cheerful stuff, I have one last story for tonight. This is from our friends at the Canigma. And this is good news. Good news for cannabis users. Hold on. Cannabis users aren't worse employees, study finds. Using cannabis does not harm employee performance or their ability to work well with colleagues, and may actually improve their job performance as long as they partake outside of their working hours, a new study has found. The study, published in the journal Group and Organization Management, found that cannabis use before and during work negatively relates to task performance, organization-aimed citizenship behaviors, and 2 forms of counterproductive work behaviors. At the same time, after-work weed use was not related positively or negatively to any form of performance as rated by the user's direct supervisor. We, of course, at the Daily Faded are working to normalize cannabis consumption and cannabis celebration, I think we could say. And this study is exactly the kind of study that we need to help show people that there is really nothing wrong with using cannabis. The researchers stated that the results indicate using cannabis before or during work harmed 4 of 5 different dimensions of performance rated by the user's direct supervisor. Yet, contrary to commonly held assumptions, not all forms of marijuana use harmed performance. They found that after-work pot use did not relate to any of the workplace performance dimensions, and that this finding casts doubt on some stereotypes of cannabis users. Researchers wrote that these findings, along with further research they gathered in the study, suggest a more nuanced conceptualization of cannabis as it relates to the workplace. Whereas such dynamics seem potentially harmful when on the job, the same dynamics may be less harmful and perhaps beneficial once off the clock, in particular in terms of stress relief. So yes, getting the stress relief of getting faded daily makes people better employees. And what are we if we're not cogs in the capitalist machine? Our highest goal in life as Americans is to be good employees. I can only say one thing to that. Peace out. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Pacific, the Daily Faded. Make sure you hit subscribe, like, and notifications. Peace out.